I'm here in front of my computer and I would like to introduce you to an application called Animate, which you have access to if you are a member of the Adobe iCloud. Animate is a computer program, an application that allows you to develop or to create content that is animated as well as interactive for the web. This program runs both in a PC or a Mac. My computer is a Macintosh, so it would be only slightly different. The only difference, as far as I know, is that the keyboard for the Mac has the command key, whereas the PC has a key called the control. I'm going to open now the program by double-clicking the icon, which I have in the dock down here. The program that I'm running is Animate CC 2014.1. This, as far as I know, is the latest version. What I now see is the opening screen or the welcome screen of Animate. If you notice right on the left side, there is one folder that says Open File. So if you already have some files that you have worked in Animate, you can find them here by clicking this folder. The second one is Create New, that allows you to create a new project. And then the third one is to create from a template. Next to it, then you have recent files. So again, these are files that you may have worked before. And Animate shows you which was the latest one that you were working on. Then on the right side, you have information about Animate, like getting started, what is new in this version, and resources. Okay, this is something good to explore on your own. Okay, for now, what I'd like to do is to create a new file and show you how we can do from the beginning how to start. So click the Create New and Animate opens up its interface. Here we see a series of little panels, and beginning with the left, you see one with the name of properties. The one that says Untitled1.html is where you see the screen, where you see the content that you're going to be creating. This is where you preview the content. On the right, you have a little panel called Elements, and right behind it you have for code. Then right below, you have the library, and the library has sub-panels, one for images, one for symbols, fonts, audio, video, and scripts. These are assets, most of these are assets that you need that are not on the screen or that you want to import and bring in and that you might want to use. Okay, except for the symbols, these are elements that you create yourself here, or some that you have changed into symbols. But images are brought in from the outside, fonts are imported, and audio and video and scripts. Okay, I will be talking more about these sub-panels. Right below, we have a panel which represents the timeline. And the timeline is separated into two sections. On the left side, you will see a listing of the elements that you have either created or imported and placed on your screen, placed on the stage. That's another word for the screen, is the stage. And here we see the stage as a rectangle, white rectangle. I will talk more about the stage in a minute. Okay, here is where we will see a listing of these elements. Over in the Elements panel, you will see the same listing here. But here you'll be able to rearrange them so that one will be on top of the other. As well as be able to see the HTML representation of the elements that you will be using. See here, for instance, the stage is a div. That's an HTML tag. If you are familiar with HTML, this would be familiar to you. But if not, it's not necessary to know HTML, but it is a good idea to have a little bit of exposure to it. HTML is a hypertext language that describes how your website looks. And the browser interprets it and says, so, okay, this should go on the left side, this should go on the right side, and so on. So it's made up of what they're called tags, T-A-G-S. A tag is a word written in between two less than and greater than brackets. And it's a series of tags. You can look them up on the internet and you will be familiar with, it would be nice to know at least some of the most common ones, like the div, the P, and which stands for paragraph, the body, and so on. I will have a chance to show you later on what an HTML page looks like. Now, the reason we want to learn a little bit about HTML is because Animate is based entirely on HTML, CSS, and it uses JavaScript to code some of the animations and other changes that we can do, like the interactions. One other thing that I want to mention before before we start talking about the interface is the tools bar, which is located at the top across the across the interface. And then above that you have the common menu, which most applications have. The file, the edit, the view, modify, timeline, and so on. But right here below the opening of the window, you have the toolbar. These are the tools that are available for you to create elements. You can create a text box, for instance. You can create a circle. This is called the ellipse tool. A rounded rectangle, or just a simple rectangle. Now, it does look a little bare because Edge Animate is, to begin with, is a very new program. So there, hopefully, with time, there will be much more tools that you can use to create other shapes as well. For now, it is pretty much enough to do some really astounding things with Edge Animate. So with that, I think maybe we can just move on to creating something on the stage and see what we can do to animate it. Okay, like I said before, when you select an object that you already have on the stage, or if you don't have any objects on the stage, then the stage itself is selected. Whenever something is selected, then in the Properties panel, the properties will show that element. And in this case, the element it's showing is the stage, which doesn't have a name, so I'm going to name it Demo, which is the name of the project. It's the main stage. So it's, I guess, a good thing to have a name. Okay, now, if you on these properties, you will notice that you have the width and the height, 550 pixels for width and 400 pixels for height. by scrolling this number either to the right or the left. If you scroll to the left, I'm sorry, to the right, the stage increases in length. By scrolling to the right, it decreases, it becomes smaller and smaller. So I usually like to make my stage 1200 pixels in length. That covers up pretty much the length of an HTML document. Now the width, you can also make it either smaller or bigger by scrolling to the left or the right. Or you can also click in there and then you have a little box where you can input a number. For instance, I like that to be 300, so I enter 300 and then click the return, and you have changed the dimensions of your stage. Next to that, you see a little swatch with the color white. This is a color swatch. If I want to change the color of my stage, I can click it here and I get a color picker. I can select the color simply by moving this thing around. And if I like to change it from red to something else, yellow or I don't know, green, whatever color, can move this scale up and down. This introduces a darker or lighter shade of the same color, and this introduces a transparency. The more further down you slide this transparency, the more transparent it becomes. Up to the top it becomes opaque. So here it is opaque. I want to leave it at that color. Let's say that I choose that color. So then what I'm going to do is click the plus sign. That saves my color, so that in case later on I want to use it again, I can select it from here. Okay, so I have chosen the color for my stage. I can also choose a gradient, a background or a background image, I think. Let's see. Here, I can select this to create a gradient. Let's say that I like to get this to be a gradient instead of a solid color. So then I select these tabs right here, select the one on the top and choose a color for it. Let's say red. Okay, the bottom one is white right now, but I can change its color to something else. Here it's white. But I can move this around and say I like that. So I'm going to choose that. And here is my stage. So I created a gradient. I invite you to check this out and on your own play around with it so that you can learn more about gradients. You can also select the minimum width and a maximum width. Okay, you can also change the overflow to show or hidden, to visible or hidden. If you show hidden, then if you create any elements that are outside of that stage, they will not show. Okay, here you can center the stage, and that's what I like to do. This is one of the newer features that have come out recently. The center stage is a really neat little thing to have because the way you center the stage, you can center it horizontally or you can center it vertical or both. I like horizontal, so I'm going to leave it in horizontal. The responsive scaling is to be used with in case you want your site to be seen on mobile devices and you want your site to appear to cover the whole screen, to fit into a smaller screen. So here you can either do it for the width only, for the height only, or for both. I'll do it for both. Okay. There are other things you can choose here for your stage, which I will talk about later. But for now, let's just leave it like that. Now that we have something done already, some work, so let's now save the file. I'm going to click File and go down to Save. Okay, so a screen opens up where I can enter a name for my file. Also, make sure to click this little thing that says Save in a folder. You don't have to, but if you do, it would be much better to organize your work because it will save it in a separate folder, and it will put not just the file that you're working on, but the HTML file and 3 or 4 other JavaScript files that Animate generates for you. I would like to name my file demo2, so I'm going to type in demo2. And notice that it is saving an HTML file. I'm going to put it on the desktop inside of a folder where it says Camtasia Recordings, because that's where I'm recording. So I'm going to save it now and then click Save. Now I would like to show you what Animate saves for you in the folder where you're saving these files. I'm going to open the folder that Animate just saved. This is the Camtasia Recordings. Here is Demo2. And there are other projects that I had started earlier. Okay, so I'm going to do the Demo2, open the Demo2, and notice what's inside. When I selected that little box that said Save in a separate folder, this is what it saved in the folder. It saved 2 files that are JavaScript files. And it saved a file which is with the subscript HTML, which means that this is an HTML format. In the next video, I'm going to open it up for you so that you can look at it. Here is another folder with more JavaScript files. Okay, we'll come back and look at this as we import more information, more stuff into the Demo2. There will be other folders, like one for images, one for video, one for sound, etc. Before we start doing any animating or any more work on the screen, I'd like to say a few words about the timeline. So I will spend a little time talking about this now. The thing I wanted to mention is how the time is indicated here. There is a little box here. I'm not sure if you can see it, so I'm going to try to make it big. I'm going to try to type it in for you with this screen marker that I have. So if you can wait a few minutes, I will show you what it looks like inside. Okay, I will put it up here on the screen. There we go. Okay, what we're looking at is what we see inside of that little box. It's like a little clock that shows the time. The first 2 zeros represent minutes. The second 2 zeros represent seconds. And the last 3 zeros represent thousandths of a second, or milliseconds. We call them milliseconds. Okay, so when you move the slider back and forth, you're going to see this changing. As it moves to the right, for instance, in between the 00 mark, 0:00 mark, is 500 milliseconds, which would have a 5 right there. Okay, I'm in the middle between 00 and 0:01. Okay, what I'm looking at here is 00, 00, 01, and 0:00. So this indicates 1 second. So from here to the beginning is 1 second. The distance is 1 second. So in between are going to be milliseconds. So in halfway between would be 500 milliseconds. And 500 milliseconds on this little box look like this. Let me type it in for you. 00 colon 00.500. Okay, I'll put it right here. Now you can see it's 500. And that's milliseconds. Or you could say 500 thousandths of a second. So it's a very minute time lapse. Very, very tiny. Okay, and there may be in here like maybe 12 or maybe more, 20 frames that have passed by in half a second. So it's kind of like half a second. This is half a second. And so one second, depending on the computer, maybe 30 frames or 24 frames, or I'm not sure. Some computers are really fast, so you could have 60 frames passing by in front of the viewer. So when that happens, they will see any changes that you created in here will appear, and if they are continuous, it means the same change will appear in all the frames, then they'll be able to see the change. And that's how we're going to do some animation. So I hope that clears up a little bit the idea of animating and how that's done. Okay. So now why don't we try to animate something that we already have here. Since all I have is just the stage, I can animate the stage. The things that I can animate on the stage, the properties that I can animate on the stage, are listed here. If you look in here, we have the width, and the width can be animated. That means we can make it appear like it's getting longer or it's getting shorter. We can animate the height. We can make it appear like it's going very high or very low. And we do that, we know that we can animate those features of the screen because we see a little triangle. Well, it's more like a little diamond shape icon that you see next to the W, which stands for width. Little diamond shape that stands for the color, the background color. And this little diamond stands for the gradient, which I applied earlier. This gradient I can change. I can change it in time. But I'm gonna need to add keyframes. And so this little triangular shape, diamond shape icon would automatically put a keyframe for me on the timeline wherever I have this little animal, the playhead. So place the playhead first and then select the keyframe. You can do it in more than one way. For instance, let's suppose I want my animation to start at 1 second. So I make sure that the playhead is there. If it's not there, I just drag it over and put it at the 1 second mark. At the 1 second mark, right next to the golden head of the playhead, you can right click. See, right here. Oops, sorry. Oh, not quite. Okay, sorry, you cannot right click. Okay, I guess you have to have something selected. I've got the stage selected. So now let me see. Okay, there you go. Okay, you need to select the element you want to animate. So here I want to animate the stage. So you click on the stage and then you right click here to add a keyframe. And see, here is the add keyframe. Right next to it are the kinds of keyframes that I can add. I can add a width keyframe, or a height keyframe, or a background color keyframe, or a gradient. I'm going to choose gradient. Okay, so I'll click And notice what happened. You see the word gradient here below the stage. It belongs to the stage. If you close this little triangle, it disappears. But if you click it again, it opens up the gradient. Next to the gradient, you see that little diamond shape icon that says Add Keyframe. And here on the timeline, where my playhead is located, I see a little white diamond. That means that I have a keyframe right there. This is important. This is telling Edge Animate that that's where I want to begin my animation. Okay, I want to move the keyframe to the end of my animation. So I want my animation to last, let's say, 1 second. So I'll move to the 2-second mark. Here I am at the 2-second mark. Okay, and I will click here, or I can also do it like from here with right-clicking and add another keyframe. Okay, I'll let the gradient keyframe. Now, I haven't talked at all about these little buttons here at the top, but they are the ones that assist you in adding keyframes. Like this one is an automatic auto keyframe, so automatically it puts a keyframe for you if you click it, or if you change something on the stage, then it adds a keyframe for you, assuming that you want to add a keyframe. Okay, I added a keyframe, but my gradient is still the same. I want to change my gradient. So I'm going to click on the gradient here or here. Okay, click on the swatch. It opens up the color picker. I have a gradient that I've already done before, this one, this blue one. And that's the one I want. So I select it. Anytime that you create a gradient, you can add it to this list by clicking the plus sign. So the plus sign allows you to add a gradient. It's not here. You can have as many as 5 gradients. Okay, so that's good to have it handy. And otherwise, make your gradients ahead of time, or you can do your gradient and then add it to this list. Or if you don't want to add it, then just don't click the plus sign. Okay, so we're done. I changed the gradient. Notice that it's hollow diamond shape. That's telling you that there was a change that occurred from a different color. See, if I move the playhead just before, all these frames have this gradient, but this frame right here is a different frame, is a different gradient. But what I want is this gradient to change gradually, to move from this gradient to this new gradient, slowly and gradually. So what I'm going to do is right click here, okay, and click create transition. Now here is a little button that adds a transition automatically for you. Once it detects that you have a hollow point, it would automatically put a transition for you. So notice the yellow color running across the bar, the yellow bar. Okay, that indicates that that period of time has been animated slowly. See how it changes back and forth as I scrub the playhead. So from the red gradient to the blue gradient. Okay. Now to view my animation, I can click the plus, the play, or in your keyboard you have the space bar. Click the space bar and automatically it will run for you on the stage. Okay, but it's not enough just to see it on the stage. Maybe you want to see it on a browser. So if you want to view it on the browser, this is what you do. Go to the file, go down to preview in browser. it's gonna select the browser that you normally choose, the browser that is by default the browser that you have selected. So I will click here, preview in browser, and my browser would appear in front of me. What I have here, oops, okay, it played the animation really fast and I missed it. So this is my browser, and this shows after the animation has played. So let me refresh the browser. I will click this little arrow, this curved arrow. What I'm using right here is Chrome. But if you're using any other browser, you should have a little arrow or something along this bar where you have the address that tells you how to refresh. So I'm going to click this, and there it goes. Okay, let me try it again. Okay, this is what the viewer will see. Oops. Oh, okay. My, whoa, sorry about that. Let me try it again. Oh, there we go. Here we go. Okay. Good. Okay. So you see here, this is what the viewer is going to see. The thing we were talking about earlier about this being responsive in case you have a small window or a big window, the browser shows a big window or a small window. If you resize the window, notice how the banner, the stage, also resizes. Here is my stage, and my stage resizes. You can because I asked that it be resized both. Here, when I said responsive scaling, and I click that little button here, so then let me bring it into view. Okay, whoa, then I'm hiding these little buttons. Okay, here, this responsive scaling, and this is the center stage. The center stage puts the stage all the way across. The responsive scaling allows you to view this in small screens. So if you have an iPad or an iPhone, you will see a small version of your site. Okay, so with that, we're going to quit here. But in the next video, we're going to do some more animating.